analysis at the end.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Sky community call. Today we have some great news to share. So yes, we'll be talking about staking as we've been for the past few weeks, but also the big news this week is the SPK token. So yeah, we have Rune here, and I've seen Sam in the audience, so maybe we'll invite him to see if he wants to join us. So and by the end we'll have Rajiv or Felipe, as always, discussing accessibility rewards and how the markets are reacting. Thanks all for joining, and if you want to write any questions, feel free, and we'll try to get them. Rune, if you want to take it away. I clicked on the wrong name. Sorry. There we go.
All right. Let me turn on my video. Oh. All right. GM, everybody. Yeah, very exciting day to finally have launched the token of the first star. And it's actually still like, so this is still not the totally sort of complete full launch of Spark. There's still a few more things missing, right? Which includes the staking rewards and the farming, but then also includes things like fully activating the Spark P&L, so it starts like earning its own profits, and also a few other things related to kind of how it operates. Which yeah, I can get into all of that on this call. But what I just want to show first is just I will just find the info dashboard. Here we go. So if you look at the info dashboard, you can see how yeah, oh, there's a cool pie chart even, right? So now the Sky Treasury. So yeah, let me just go back to the starting, right? This is the info dashboard. You have the total supply, you have the surplus buffer, which is at 100 million. But then you also have the treasury balance, which is like the total value of all assets owned by Sky, which is actually more than just like one thing is there's the surplus buffer right here, right? There's 100 million. There's also a little bit of USDS in the smart burn engine. So that's this thing here. But one thing that the treasury doesn't count is the value of Sky, because obviously you can't count like your own token in your own treasury. But then, of course, the really big one now is we have a huge amount of SPK tokens. Yeah, 322 million worth right now. So that's like, yeah, it's like 3/4 of the total treasury, right? The SPK tokens are worth 3 times as much as the surplus buffer. So that's really cool, and that's kind of what I mean. That's just the first thing I want to show is that when we launch these co-incubated Genesis stars like Spark and others that are coming, that are going to be unveiled, and then eventually we're going to be launched in the same way as Spark. Every time that happens, because the Sky Core ecosystem participants have been deeply involved in incubating and supporting these stars, and then also because there's going to be a capitalization, like an asset transfer to Spark worth almost 25 million, right? So there's a huge investment also made from Sky into Spark. So because of this, Sky gets to take a huge amount of their tokens, right? So in this case, it's 65% of the total Spark supply is now held in Sky's treasury. And then what's going to happen next is that these tokens will slowly be distributed and basically turned into value for Skyholders. And it happens in two ways. One is through staking rewards. So that's something I was sort of alluding to that, right? We've been talking about that you can get, like right now you can get really good USDS staking rewards on Sky. And then what's happening is you will also be able to choose SPK tokens in addition to USDS. And if you look at I think I calculated that given the current price of the token, what adding SPK tokens to the reward options will do is an expected increase in the rewards of something like 20 to 30%, I think. Yeah, I can go into details of the whole of exactly how the distribution of SPK tokens held in the Sky Treasury, how that works later. But so that's actually 30% of this, the treasury balance. Wait, let me just share it while we're talking about it. Let me just share it again. So 30% of these $322 million of SPK tokens will be distributed to Sky stakers over the next 10 years. And so that's about what? That's a total of something like 100 million, I guess. And then 70% will be, yeah, so the remaining, right? So more than 200 million worth will be distributed to USDS holders. And this is sort of, I mean, this is an indirect way of basically turning the tokens into cash, because when you distribute out these tokens to USDS holders, then what's going to happen is the USDS holders will get SPK tokens, but in return, they will not get the savings rate. So the savings rate will instead go to Sky. And so once it becomes efficient, like, if you look here at the reward rate, right? So the reward APY for Sky token rewards has equilibrated almost completely with the savings rate. And this can actually further, and it does continue to get adjusted. So this will further equilibrate, and you will end up having these two rates totally equilibrating. So the same thing will happen with the SPK farming on USDS. And as a result, basically, it's going to result in a value accrual to Sky of more than 200 million. So that's like I mean, one thing is kind of like the network effects and the sort of the use case and the adoption that this is going to drive, right? That you're going to have people coming in and using USDS in order to farm SPK, and you're going to have people buying Sky to stake it in order to get SPK tokens. But then the other thing is that it just directly does turn into actual value for Sky token holders, right? So this is a really good return on investment so far in terms of the 25 million that Sky is deploying into, like, to capitalize Spark. But of course, beyond the 25 million, I mean, there's been just a huge amount of work in support by all the various ecosystem participants in Sky. But like I said, this will actually be repeated several times over. So there's going to be a whole bunch of these core incubated Genesis stars, just like Spark. And then the same thing will happen depending on how much support the core provided. So the various contributors that are involved in Sky core work. Depending on how much support they provided and depending on how much capital Sky transfers into the star, that's going to determine how big an allocation Sky gets. And then those tokens end up just like this on the balance sheet in a treasury, basically. And then from there, they're distributed over this 10-year period in the same way that SPK is. Yeah. So that's kind of the simple primer on what's going to happen with Spark SPK, how that's going to affect Sky staking. Then there's a couple of other topics to talk about, right? I can go into like the exact sort of how the actual distribution works, but then the other thing I also want to talk about is the P&L, like the kind of how Spark makes money and how Sky makes money, and how do you know how much of the current profit into the ecosystem, how much is going to go to Sky, how much is going to go to Spark, as well as the other stars. But let me just see. There's some questions here, it seems, about the restriction. So congrats on the SPK launch. Regarding access to info.sky money, Sky Forum, etc., why is it so restricted to protocols like Aave? I guess compared to protocols like Aave or Uni. And so, okay, so this is a really common question, right? So the number one reason is because USDS is a major stablecoin. So if you look at major decentralized stablecoins, they tend to be a lot more restricted than other types of DeFi protocols. In practice, it's probably not like it's probably being overly like being really erring on the side of caution in this case. But also there's a very solid plan in place that's going to allow the ecosystem to be more aggressive and more open to enabling users to access the products incubated inside the ecosystem without having to take the risk of basically just being more like basically being more exposed due to the nature of the product, right? Which is that the core product that we really care about in Sky is obviously the stablecoin. So yeah, this is, I mean, it's a major priority to deal with this in a way that gets us both the ability to serve any user, but also not open up to more risks. All right, I just want for fun, let's go have a look at, because I know everybody thinks this is so much fun. We will have a look at the atlas and take a look at this the logic related to how the SPK tokens will be distributed. So as far as oh, this is funny. What the hell is this? Okay, that's a new one. I haven't even seen that yet. I believe this stuff is in the ecosystem accords and all right. Genesis token launch. Oh yeah, there's this one thing to add actually. So Spark actually, in addition to the tokens that have been that are already now sort of recorded in the treasury, there's actually this additional thing that Spark has something called a double distribution upkeep. So what that means is that every agent, which most of the agents that we care about are the star agents. There's also other types of agents, but the star agents are kind of the major ones. But all of these agents, they all have to pay something called agent upkeep. And so agent upkeep is 25, like so 0.25% of their market cap per year, basically sort of distributed as tokens to USDS holders. So kind of like continuously farmed, which again is the same as just like paying it out basically. And then due to the various beneficial terms that Spark has received, it has committed to, or rather, it is essentially forced to through the atlas to pay a higher distribution, like a higher agent upkeep like this, so double upkeep for 20 years, starting 10 years out in the future and then ending 30 years out in the future. So this is like a very super long term upside to Sky. But this kicks in when the first sort of wave of distributing the tokens we just looked at in the treasury, when they run out. That's when this stuff then kicks in. So there's going to be like an additional upside to Sky based on the original incubation work done on Spark that's going to last for a really, really long time. So basically, all Skyholders are going to have lots of upside in how well the performance and the growth of Spark for a very long time. Okay, so oh, this is different. So yeah. Okay, I think then the token distribution is probably still here. No. Okay, this might actually be missing. Because so the distribution of star tokens used to be in no, in the protocol scope here. No, but
I'm
it's
only
been
saying
moved.
that it's in the accord in tokenomics run.
All right. Okay. Cool.
And LDR is posting the link to the Atlas Explorer by Powerhouse.
Yeah. All right. There's a direct link. Okay. I'll paste it in. I don't know if it works if I just paste it in up here and then does it automatically. Oh, okay. It worked. Let's just have a look. Where is it? Okay, so ecosystem accords, star program, substantive terms, tokenomics, yes, token allocations, Sky retained tokens, and reward pools. Well, okay. So this is the wrong amount here. Oh, no. That's the other. That's the, okay. No, this is the right amount. Here we go. 6.5 billion SPK tokens. Yes, here we go. So yeah, here it is. So basically it's going to be a huge amount of tokens in the first year, like a relatively large amount of tokens. So 487 million to stakers and 1.6 billion to, no, sorry, 1.137 billion to USDS holders. And so at the current price of 0.05, what's that? So that's like roughly 500 million times 0.05. So 25 million in so 25 million in SPK tokens will be distributed this year to staking holders, to Sky stakers. Yeah, which is like roughly it's 200. Yeah, it's about like a 20% increase in staking rewards. Then what I think, as I've proposed in the past, it might make sense to actually reduce the staking rewards with the same amount. So we reduce the cash reward by 20% in order to just get the program sustainable. But I think it might also be like there's going to be some other factors that could increase income to the ecosystem. So it may also not be necessary, and it actually ends up making sense to just let the staking reward go up. And of course, one thing that's going to increase the income is just right over here, there's going to be some additional income, right? So this will roughly be an additional 50 million or so that'll be earned by the ecosystem. So that'll like go in, like that'll increase the profits and go into the surplus buffer this year. And of course, all this is assuming that the current price of SPK holds, right? So right now, the valuation of Spark, the total valuation is like 500 million. So that's actually quite high, I think. Obviously, I mean, it could easily go much higher if you compare it to any other project out there that doesn't have real profits, unlike Spark, right, which has lots of real profits. But on the other hand, 500 million is just always a lot of money. And what still remains to be seen is like exactly what Spark's long term, like how you would, if you value it with something like a P ratio type of system. That's not entirely possible yet. It'll take probably a couple of months to get a sense of like the sort of the baseline and sort of the growth rate and long term profit potential of Spark. So it's hard to say like whether 500 million for Spark is like a really sustainable value. But yeah, I think it's like it's not unreasonable to make assumptions with these numbers and then look at this type of distribution over the long term. let let me have a look if there's a, all right, there's a question here. All right, so let's see. SPK and the upcoming star announcements are really exciting, and I see the benefit to Sky ecosystem. When I start to look at all the benefit to Sky and token distribution and everything, I start to wonder how the relationship is offering equal or more value to the stars. I'm guessing this is due to things like preferential rates for access to liquidity via USDS and other things. Can you lay out the core reasons that these relationships are just as valuable to the stars as to Sky? This is something I find hard to explain to others easily. So the thing you have to keep in mind is that Sky is getting a huge upside in Spark, specifically because of all sorts of extra stuff that was done to support Spark. Right? It was like, I mean, it's the first star. It was like incubated with all of the resources and capabilities of the Sky core contributors. Like Spark sort of took over as like a semi-official, like the semi-official Sky front end for a long time, right? So Sky has a lot of like a major stake in Spark and SPK, which is why Sky got a lot of upside in this agent. But actually, like long-term agents. So in the future, when you have builders coming sort of externally, maybe with their own investors coming to build stars on Sky with the Sky agent framework, which is really that's the real goal, right? To have a lot of like a very vibrant ecosystem and having permissionlessly created stars, right? So you have lots of stars all doing the business models, accessing the base rate, right? So borrowing, like generating USDS and deploying collateral on behalf of Sky at a preferential rate and then earning a spread based on that. These will actually only have to pay one very simple cost to Sky to get all of these features. And by the way, these features, they're called the Sky primitives. So the Sky primitives is sort of like a kind of a whole host of tools that you get as a star. The most important being the allocation system, right? So that's the ability to borrow cheaply from Sky. And then the other is the accessibility reward. So that's the ability to earn basically like a referral fee of 20 basis points on all USDS that you source via your front ends. So whenever users they hold USDS or SUSDS or even SUSDC, right, which is all of these are some like are really useful products that people use on Spark.fi. Whenever users use any of those things and they use them through the Spark.fi website, then Spark actually earns 20 basis points on the sort of the TVL of the user's stablecoins. So all of this is the benefit, like these Sky primitives, such as what I just mentioned, they are the benefits that the star gets. And then the cost is it has to pay the agent upkeep. And the agent upkeep is 25 basis points of their market cap per year. And if you kind of recalculate that and you compare it to something else, like sort of like you could compare it to something like a corporate tax, for instance, then if you assume a PE ratio of 20, then 25 basis points in agent upkeep is equivalent to like a 5% corporate tax that also applies to unrealized gains, basically. Well, or maybe, yeah, no, I'm not sure you can say that. That really depends on how it's valued, right? But I guess it's more like the question is, of course, what's the PE ratio of the star? Like how is the star token valued based on how much profit it's generating? But it's just ultimately that is quite a low cost, right? For the benefits you get of getting access to basically superpowers in the form of the Sky primitives. And then there's also a lot more support and infrastructure and capabilities, the most important being all the governance tooling and the governance AI. But that is like less tangible, I guess, right? You have to kind of understand why that's valuable before you will assign any kind of value to it. All right, so there's another question here.
I don't know, Ruben, if you want Sam to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, Sam, because I have no idea about this stuff. Like I was talking only about Skyholders, and I don't know anything about how Spark's
The
own
question is,
pro.
sorry if I missed it, distribution to staking users is only for, I guess it's SPK stakers on Symbiotic or also for Pendle PT/YT holders. Can you expand a bit on the split between USDS users and staking users? Aren't points fungible between Pendle users and staking users?
Yeah, it's the same points program. So Spark points, there's 3 points per day per SPK in the symbiotic staking, and Pendle YT is for also the LP position. Gets, let me just check. I think it's 25 per day per USDS. Yes, 25 points. Yeah, they're fungible if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
Nice. Hopefully, Pierre, that answers your question. There's another one by Chris. I'm not sure if I get it. Maybe you do. It's, can we have Spark integrate staking?
I don't know what that means. There's already staking live.
So, Chris, maybe you want to clarify your.
Oh, I think maybe this is about sky staking, like being able to do sky staking on the Spark front end.
In its farm page to cut the daily complaints for people who can't access. Yes.
Like a Spark
Like
farm.
they're asking if you are going to support sky holders staking their sky on Spark.fi.
Yes.
Yeah, I would also imagine that. With Spark, the answer is usually they're going to support everything eventually. These guys, they don't. They go hard. Yeah, we're so lucky to have like such a crazy cracked builder like Sam building all this cool shit for us. And I also want to, one thing I want to highlight that I think is really cool is the the liquidity of SPK, which is so just like, I mean, I'm really surprised by that. Or well, like it's because SPK is now more liquid than MKR, right? Which is that's a huge achievement, right? That Spark actually has managed to create more liquidity than the ecosystem that incubated it. So that really showcases how the launch itself was like very well executed, and I think that also bodes well for future stars, basically, right? That it shows that actually there's a lot of value in being a star and launching as a star.
Is there anything you want to comment while we have you in
Yeah,
the
we got
Sky
Sam on
Community
the
Call?
stage. So if anybody have some Spark specific question, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
can also just say, thanks to everybody for supporting us and all the support from Sky. Like, I think it's really been a team effort. Rune mentioned the team's like good, but it's the team behind us that's like really killing it. Like, we've just got world class team members, and everybody's just been putting 110% to realize the vision of Sky and the whole SubDAO star mission, which I think is already proving to be a big success. So thank you, everybody. And, we're happy to have this out of the way. We can get back down to building products, because ultimately our team loves building out products. So we're happy to be back to that. But yeah, happy to answer any questions.
I did hear a few stories about sleepless nights, Sam. So congrats to you and the whole Spark team on the launch. I think it went pretty smooth. I'm sure behind the scenes there's a few things that that we will never know about, but yeah, congrats, because everything looked very organized and smooth.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also agree. I also feel like that it's really the best thing is like the fact that now it's done. Now there's an active token, and like I said, there's extremely high liquidity, which is very very useful. Like that really de-risks significantly as well, right? Because the more liquidity there is in SPK token, the more chance that it can recover from insolvency. So that just of course means everybody else, we can feel a little bit more we can just feel a little bit more calm in letting Spark utilize a lot of leverage out of the collateral portfolio. And then the reality is now the interesting time begins because Spark is not a token project, right? It's not like a token launch pump and dump or anything like that. It's a profit machine, right? So now very soon we'll get to see those profits and how the community that's been built around token, how that can mobilize and participate in actually growing the performance and finding new opportunities and rolling it all out. So gonna be super exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. We've got our main KPIs up, debt allocated and APY on that, so everybody can track in real time how we're doing. So yeah, we want to raise the bar there.
What's the website, Sam, so that we put it in the.
It's on the Spark liquidity layer data.spark.fi dashboard from Block Analytica.
Data.spark.fi. Perfect. And there's a question by Rajiv. Maybe hold on the sharing until we're done with this segment. There's a question by Pierre saying, "What's the next exciting milestone for Spark in terms of product expansion and integration, if it can be shared?"
Yeah, I mean, we've got some stuff in the works on the down low for now, but uh, like really getting up the Spark liquidity layer, capturing most of the market. We're almost there, I'd say. Already expanding out to products like Maple, Athena, and this base US like Morpho integration. These are three markets that we previously didn't have access to. The funding rates on centralized exchanges, which have lots of capacity. Bitcoin OTC loans via Maple had just there's huge demand there. Like we haven't even begun to tap into that completely yet. As well as the Coinbase integration, Bitcoin Borrow. I mean, the theme is like CDFI integrations with like Bitcoin backed loans is like just been very very popular right now, and for good reason. Like Bitcoin price appreciation has been quite significant. So there's lots of people out there with Bitcoin who want to take loans against the Bitcoin. So like I think we can facilitate like billions in loans there. So just getting access to these new markets has been very exciting. I think this trend of like we're seeing a lot of more institutional players wanting to come on chain that were previously a little bit hesitant. So we see a lot more interest in getting on chain. More institutional style loans. Maybe on L2s and stuff like that. We're just seeing a lot of demand there. So we want to just make sure we cover all of this first and foremost with the Spark liquidity layer. But there's also some secret stuff we're working on in the background as well.
Nice, super nice. If anyone wants to check the dashboard, data.spark.fi, and there's I guess it's not a question, it's a comment by Kianga saying the launch video was so smooth, best look in the history of crypto. Thank you for raising the bar. So thank you, Kianga, for the appreciation.
Yeah, thanks. Team does great work.
If there's
That's good. Finally have some cool some serious marketing people in the trenches. This is
Yeah,
exactly what I always thought the stars could achieve, that you can really get people to like getting really aggressive with the marketing and finding ways to share the message.
I guess that's the last comment. There's this comment by Nadia saying, claim your airdrop at app.spark.fi/spk/airdrop. So for those that haven't done it, you can check if your wallet is eligible, and then yeah, claim the airdrop if that's the case. Link to the video team will if you you don't mean this video, you mean the okay, the Spark video. I guess you can find it on Twitter. Yeah, Sam is answering that you can find it on the Spark Twitter. All right. So if there's no more questions for Spark, thank you, Sam and Nadia for coming. We have Rajiv to take the stage and give us the latest updates on accessibility rewards.
Thanks, Juan, and apologies everyone for the technical issues. I've just switched
No
off
worries.
from Chrome permanently and gone to Safari, so hopefully this works. I was playing with the screen sharing. It seems a little. Let's see. Do you? Hopefully, you see the screen with the standard yield coin market landscape.
We do see the yield coin market landscape, yes.
Perfect. So I'll kick off with the standard weekly trends that we've observed across the wider yield coin market landscape. And the first one to call out is the drop in APY that we've seen this week from Athena. You can see it's now very close to the SSR. And previously, when we've seen that, we've seen Athena take a large position in SUSDS. So that's one we'll be watching closely moving forward. I'm also conscious that when we look at the wider market landscape, it is a dynamic environment and shifts, and we're actually missing a huge player here. So I'm going to switch screen, and hopefully this shows up for everyone to show Syrup or Maple and the Syrup USDC and USDT offerings and the momentum that they are getting. And you can see a lot of that is actually driven by Spark, but it's not just Spark. It's getting a lot of momentum and broken through the 500 million barrier, which was the threshold we had set for tracking competitors or the competitive landscape. So we'll be adding this to the wider yield market landscape. And it's interesting to see how the yield is actually competitive versus now Athena and Sky. Switching back to our USDS ecosystem, over the week, we've seen this uptick in demand by about 100 million. I'm going to strip out Sky Savings from that so you can see the trend more clearly. Sky Savings has stayed relatively stable during the week, and the uptick is actually being driven by the USDS lending market, so on Aave and also Spark. On Aave, there were actually some repayments from the borrow market for USDS that's led to more liquidity there. We also see the continued momentum from Pendle, continuing the trend that we've been observing over these last few weeks. And also actually after quite a bit of time, an uptick with the token reward feature. And you can see that in more detail here at the bottom left. That's specifically been driven by the Sky Farm, not the Chronicle one. When we look at SUSDS, as I mentioned, it's been a relatively flat week. It's sort of, you see the breakdown here at the bottom. It's dipped in sort of the mid period, and that's been driven by actually Maple and the Syrup USDC allocation. And it's quite an interesting symbiotic relationship that's developing with Maple. You saw how Sky has increased its, or Sky via Spark has increased its allocation there. But with their short-term liquidity allocations, we expect this to be volatile. But it's interesting how there's sort of cross holdings in the same way that Sky has with Athena. Also for SUSDS, we've seen differing trends in terms of growth being driven by SUSDC, and that's been observed on Optimism and also on Mainnet. And this was all yesterday. Our reporting period goes up to the end of day yesterday, and you can see sort of that immediate momentum, I'm assuming, with the Spark launch. However, offsetting that, what we're seeing with SUSDS is a decline in the holdings from what I would call the long tail smaller value holders as represented in this other category. So overall, we've sort of ended the week period where we started it with Sky Savings, but an uptick with other USDS features. And those are the main trends of the week. And apologies again to all for the technical issues.
ready if there's any questions.
Sounds like there's some sound issue. But yeah, can you try again, Juan?
Okay. Yeah,
There we go.
I don't know if is it better now?
No. Anyway, I think, I mean, if there's no questions, then this is a good time to end it. Thanks everyone for coming to the big post Spark celebration and nerding out about some super technical details as always.